Forget the civility of the Jedi and the regale of the Rebellion. Star Wars Outlaws is here, gun at the ready, starting bar fights and blasting anyone who gets in its way. An open world Star Wars game packed full of laser flaring gunfights and oozing charm. In fact, it's so full of it, they were hoping you might not notice the missed potential at its core. Look, I found Outlaws had a lot going for it whenever it clicked for me. The Star Wars vibes are immaculate. The gunplay, while a little shallow, is fun enough, and the story is deeply rooted in a love for the franchise and also is going to play a significant role in it going forward. When all the components do mesh together, there is a truly excellent scoundrel game here. Sadly, Star Wars Outlaws is often far too mired by its own system's limitations to allow real open world fun or any satisfying stealth elements to happen. Outlaws protagonist Kay Vess never quite steps out of the shadow of what makes everyone's favorite scoundrel so great, but she is a fantastic addition to the Star Wars universe. And while I enjoyed my time with Outlaws a good amount, the mileage you may get out of it will heavily depend on why you're picking the game up in the first place, because much like Han Solo, there's a heart of gold in there, just hidden underneath all that scruffy nerf herder.
This job, it's a death wish. I'm in.
Outlaws' story is maybe one of the most unique approaches to the Star Wars universe we've seen in a while. We've had plenty of time to be a Jedi, lots of time to be a rebel, we even had our chance to be part of the Empire. But we've never just been a person. A regular person set out in the world just trying to make it. Our protagonist, Kay Vess, is a down-on-her-luck thief who gets tangled up in an intergalactic crime syndicate war when she gets death-marked after a heist gone wrong, stealing a ship from Sliro, the head of the biggest of the syndicates. After escaping from Canto Bight, Kay crashes her freshly lifted ship into an inhabited moon called Toshara. You spend most of the opening hours of the game just getting to know her, Nix, and a small group of side characters. This is also where most of the gameplay mechanics are introduced and where you end up fixing up your ship to get out into the open world again. Kay and her feathery lizard sidekick dog thing, Nix, are both really likable characters. Kay is an awkward cross between Han Solo and a sassy tomboy from a CW show. Suave and confident, but a little socially inept at times. These Genesis moments really helped her grow on me as a Star Wars character, and though this is a typically long Ubisoft opening, once I had my hyperdrive up and ready, the galaxy started to feel like it was really opening up.
Kay Vess, we meet at last.
Kay starts to experience some real freedom once she gets out into space, being able to hop back and forth from planet to planet where she can meet new mentors, take on Syndicate jobs, and even upgrade her equipment. These systems are where Outlaws shines the most for me. No Star Wars property has really shown the impact of a galaxy-spanning gang war better than Outlaws does. Everything ties back to the four syndicates: the Hutt Cartel, the elusive and suave Crimson Dawn, the ever-obnoxious Pikes, and the newly introduced hive-minded Ashiga clan, which means balancing your relationships with each of them is fundamentally important. For instance, vendors will have different prices based on your rep. You have a bad reputation, you get jacked up prices, but an excellent reputation and you see discounts. I loved navigating this delicate system of balancing the syndicate's expectations and relationships, except for the Pikes. Nobody likes the Pikes, but this is where your choices start to feel like they actually matter, because you want to keep the gangs happy, and you want to make sure you keep the right gangs happy at the right time. And that means that every opportunity, every side quest, even every vendor transaction is a chance to mess up that relationship. It's easy to get caught up in the contracts and exploration, but the actual story only progresses whenever you put your crew together, so don't neglect that part either. After all, it is a heist video game. Ubisoft is pretty well known for maps bloated with icons screaming, "Do this!" and sometimes almost making the map feel useless in the process. You usually would reveal these map sections by climbing up some very large tower or building or tree, scanning the environment, synchronizing, the normal tower gameplay of Ubisoft game. This would give you a lay of the lands. Outlaws features no such mini-map bloated with things to do or towers to climb. Its UI is fairly minimal, and while the map is basic, the sheer number of things to do is actually staggering. Dynamic events happen in the world like pirates attacking civilians or Imperials attacking pirates. This can really breathe some life into the planets that you're exploring. And exploration on its own is also a massively appealing activity, with the promise of loot taking you to all kinds of interesting environments. There are speeder races, special caches, and so much more to discover. It's easy to get lost in the sauce out there. I love that Massive decided to leave behind the glut of those maps for a more organic feeling explorer approach, which makes taking time to just wander around feel like a worthwhile endeavor. Amongst the various activities and missions are a good group of minigames, and 2024 is the year of the minigame. Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, minigames. Like a Dragon, minigames. Those are the only two examples I can think of off the top of my head, but I promise you there are more. Anyway, the minigames in this game are pretty good. You've got everything ranging from Star Wars in-universe arcade cabinets, which have some of the best music in the game, I gotta say, all the way to Kessel Sabak, a spin on the original Star Wars card game. But also for some reason, and I can't figure out why, Eating with Nix is a QuickTime event minigame, which is weird. I think we can all agree that it's weird to have to press buttons to eat. Wait, is that what it's like whenever I eat? I just don't know about it? If I think about it, am I gonna have to remember which buttons to press in my brain? I should probably move on. Anyway, that minigame is fine, because while it's weird, look at how cute Nix is. Look at he's just eating, he's chowing down. You tell me that's not cute? You shut your mouth. I guess the main issue here isn't that there's not a lot of stuff to do in this world, there is, but instead that there's just a lot of stuff that I just frankly don't want to do. Look, the rewards range from useless to redundant, and aside from being a task to check off a list, I just didn't find them engaging. Were they enticing? Yes, but not engaging. It's admirable that Ubisoft and Massive tried to break away from so many of the tentpole Ubisoftisms, but the stealth gameplay of Outlaws feels boxed in. And when half of those missions out there require you to do stealth, that's a problem. And I think I figured out why. It's because Ubisoft forgot the #1 rule of stealth. Jazz.
What makes you think I'll stick around?
I trust you'll do what's best for you, Kay?
Before we can really talk about Star Wars Outlaws gameplay, first we need to talk about jazz. Stealth gameplay is like a box of instruments that you play in an improvised show. You're sneaking around on the hi-hats, and then ooh, the piano starts. You knock a guy out, it's a little bop on the drum. Now the sax is in, and you're smooth sliding around corners, subtly making your way through a restricted area, even when you get spotted. That's just the drums picking up the beat, my guy. And you better believe that whenever you're spotted and you're shot at, that's the trumpets coming in for a big swell. But you can get back to that smooth sailing light fingers across the piano gameplay by outsmarting the enemy. A great example of a game that understands the jazz of stealth: Metal Gear Solid 5. Kojima fundamentally understood how to put those tools in your hand and allow you to play them in any rhythm or style that you wanted. He allowed you to free form. And you can freeform jazz all over that game. There's no chains holding you to a specific path. Star Wars Outlaws is like a big band jazz recital. It's all sheet music, and it's gotta be played just the right way for it to really work. It still has that jazzy feel, but you can't really improvise because there just isn't room for a 6 sax solo in this rigid structure. A lot of that comes down to Kay's incredibly simplistic stealth that simultaneously feels like a low-key Watch Dogs sequel and an attempt to replicate combat encounters of Uncharted. Nix is basically a much cuter hacking device from Watch_Dogs, and he can blow up canisters, sabotage alarms, steal items, and even create distractions to Kay to quote-unquote quietly take down foes. But the real reason stealth doesn't do it for me here is that its rules are inconsistent throughout the game. Sometimes when you get spotted, the enemy pulls an alarm, and you're able to adapt, run, hide, and return to stealth. Other times, instant fail stealth rears its ugly head, forcing you to replay the same area over and over and over again. It's a shame because none of the stealth mechanics here are bad necessarily, they just lack variety and adaptability. There's much here that implies a greater concept of stealth, but the delivery is just a failure. Like sure, you can stealth take down baddies if loudly punching dudes in the face counts as stealth, but then you have no way to hide the body. You can't get rid of the evidence. So when a horde of overly curious stormtroopers start getting nosy, there are few places to hide. There's no hay bales, there's no closets, there's no secret doors, there's nowhere to go. You just have to hope that they don't get close enough to you, or that if you get caught, that this isn't one of the instant fail stealth missions. In fact, that's probably why I spent most of this game playing it more like Uncharted, sneaking as best as I could, but going loud for epic laser shootouts as soon as I got seen. I found this to be a way more enjoyable experience overall. Outlaws is at its best whenever you are just barely surviving by outgunning and outwitting your enemies. Unlocking mentors and new abilities only strengthens this approach, allowing you access to much better gunplay and more powerful moves. All this to say is I don't hate the stealth in this game. I hate forced stealth. in every game. It can feel very Star Wars accurate to sneak around a spaceship and disable alarms and barely get out of the way in these industrial, bleak settings that the Empire loves. But on the occasions where the game is only doing that to force stealth on me, that's when I found myself getting frustrated.
Hilta, o puno do toki. Kira jama oba jagrind.
Kay can also take to the stars in the Trailblazer, making a slick transition from ground to space in a beautiful cinematic way. Out here, Kay can find different cargo missions, infiltrate Imperial outposts, and even engage in some pretty okay dogfights. Look, flying the Trailblazer is fine. I've flown better stuff in video games, but it's not terrible. It's like driving a space pickup truck. It's a little bulky, and again, the actual dogfights are a little too basic to stay interesting across the game. All the same, I did love soaring through the open stars looking for hidden loot and battling pirates and Imperial TIE fighters. I just wish there was more to it than just that. One thing the team at Massive absolutely killed it on is the visuals. Outlaws is a gorgeous splendor for your eyes to behold, full of richly detailed environments, vibrant and believable worlds that feel alive and moving, and some wonderfully accurate Star Wars character representation. The Star Wars vibes are immaculate, as I said before, a fantastic blend of modern-day Star Wars design and old-school Ralph McQuarrie concept art. I found myself in awe of so many places, just taking in enchanting landscapes, which is unfortunately where my weakness was exposed once again: photo mode. Guys, when I say I took a book worth of photos, I mean I took a book worth of photos. I couldn't help it. Look at this lighting. Look at that water. You're gonna sit there and tell me this doesn't look like something straight out of a piece of concept art? You stop lying. This game is beautiful. But as beautiful as it is, unfortunately Outlaw's pristine aesthetic may be one of the reasons I had about 12 game crashes throughout my playthrough. Weirdly, in typical Ubisoft fashion, I didn't actually experience any bugs. I just experienced full-on game crashes. And photo mode, strangely enough, was one of the causes of several of them. But the star of this game is its characters and story. This really is the first time we've seen the full breadth of the iron fist of the Empire and the oppressive foot of the Syndicates at the same time, showing us just how bad things really were. Sure, outside of Andor, lots of characters just tell us how widespread and diabolical these groups are in the movies. But I actually saw the impact on regular people in this game. They weren't holding out hope for a mystical laser sword wielding wizard to save them. They just have to trust people like a kindly scoundrel who may or may not be ready to screw them over at a moment's notice. There are some really powerful side quests too, especially on some of the mentor sides. Also, I would kill for Nyx. Anybody, anywhere, nobody better lay a hand on it. I swear to God. Likewise, I found myself growing quite attached to my crew. Indy 5, a recommissioned commando droid, is another standout character. His dry wit and sarcasm are fun, but he never crosses that boundary into being just another sarcastic droid. I didn't expect the story to matter to the larger narrative of Star Wars, but man, I was wrong. If you're a Star Wars fan, this is a Star Wars story worth experiencing. Star Wars Outlaws is a solid game, and despite my complaints throughout this review, I really did enjoy my time with it. Compelling characters that just needed a little bit more love, a fantastic story, and some decent gameplay. Ultimately, what makes me, and I feel others, sour on the game is that the potential was there for something better. There is a lot of promise in this premise, and Outlaws' lack of truly unique identity makes it hard to find that promise inside. As a longtime fan of the galaxy far, far away, I'm glad this game is here. I imagine we will all look back on this game a lot more fondly after some time has passed, as we almost always do with every Star Wars project ever. I hope to see more of this style of game from the Star Wars universe. I give Star Wars Outlaws a 7 out of 10. Now I'm off to ask the Jedi about the tragedy of 1313, though I fear it's not a story I'll get from the CEO of the Jedi. For Hardwired, I'm Andrew Hamilton.